Our top story this morning, President Trump kicked off a high-stakes trip around Europe today. During a breakfast with NATO leadership, he pushed back on energy deals European countries made with Russia and complained they need to bolster defense spending. Here's a live look at some of our nation's leaders being introduced at the summit right now. As CBS's Laura Podesta reports, it's the president's final stop, a Helsinki summit with Vladimir Putin that's raising concerns.
President Trump met with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg this morning in Brussels.
I think the Secretary General likes Trump. He may be the only one, but that's okay with me.
Stoltenberg thanked the president for pushing other countries to increase their defense spending. So far this year, only 5 of 29 NATO countries, including the U.S., spent 2% of their gross domestic product on defense, the NATO standard.
Your message is having an impact.
But the friendly back and forth didn't last long.
So we're supposed to protect you against Russia.
President Trump argued that NATO countries, specifically Germany, are helping Russia through energy deals.
Germany, as far as I'm concerned, is captive to Russia because it's getting so much of its energy from Russia.
Stoltenberg fired back, saying NATO stands together when dealing with Russia. That exchange likely adds to concerns about the last leg of the president's trip.
And I have Putin. Frankly, Putin may be the easiest of them all. Who would think?
What would be really disastrous would be for us to have a negative NATO meeting and then do something with Putin that further destabilizes the relationship.
President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin meet in Helsinki, Finland next week. Laura Podesta, CBS News, New York.
And also in this morning's headlines, the Justice Department missed last night's deadline for returning immigrant children to their parents. Around half of the detainees under the age of 5 were reunited with their families Tuesday. A federal judge in California refused the government's request for more time, instead urging officials to move more quickly. And the Trump administration is getting ready to impose new tariffs on Chinese-made goods. Last night, the White House Trade Office released a list of over 6,000 products that it wants to slap a 10% surcharge onto. Beijing has vowed that it will retaliate to any new tariffs. In court news, the Oregon man accused of leaving a baby in the woods makes his first court appearance.
I love that kid. Okay, hang on.
A distraught Francis Crowley made his initial court appearance Tuesday while crying and shouting obscenities, upset that he will never again see the child he abandoned. Officials say Crowley admitted he was on both methamphetamine and bath salts at the time he left the 5-month-old in the woods. He also told police he was tired of carrying the baby boy. Missoula County Sheriff's deputies found Crowley after responding to reports of a car crash near Lolo Hot Springs. Authorities say Crowley was too intoxicated to help officers find the infant. The first responders who found the baby boy are sharing their story. As MTM's Augustin McDonald reports, one deputy told the media his fatherly instincts took over.
There was a lot of emotion in the room today as Deputy Ross Jessup and others talked about the moments that led up to finding the child and making such an unlikely recovery.
It had been a long, exhausting night for Ross Jessup. Search crews desperate for leads hiked late into the night, coming across debris, footprints, but no baby. Jessup says he followed his gut, but prepared for the worst.
And I just asked him, I said, Nick, will you be willing to walk up the mountain with me? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. We walked up a ways, about ready to the top of the crest of the hill, and we stopped. And I even blurted out to Nick several times, like, Nick, I'm so mad that this is happening. Like, I'm so mad that we're looking for a dead baby.
But even after 9 hours, the faint cries coming from the mouth of this 5-month-old child prompted the officers to switch off their radios, look down, and see the infant lying face down under a pile of sticks.
Police tactics, police trainings, they all went out. I saw this little tiny child. My father instincts kicked in, and I picked him up, scooped him up. We swallowed him in a down coat and a beanie hat, and I just held on to him. My father instincts came in. I abandoned any police training or any any chance of saving evidence there. I didn't care. I scooped up a baby, made sure he was breathing. He had a sparkle in his eye, warmed him up, gave him a couple of kisses, and just held him.
He says the baby was coughing and spit sticks out of its mouth.
He was alert, but he just seemed comforted. He did. He peered into my eyes, and I peered into his eyes. I gave him kisses on the forehead, and I looked at him, and I couldn't thank the Lord Jesus enough. I was just so happy.
The infant was taken to the hospital, where this photo was taken of its small hand clutching the finger of Captain Bill Burt, who says the baby wouldn't let go while it drank 3 containers of Pedialyte supplements.
Jessup told me he doesn't like being the center of attention and credits everyone who was involved with the ground search and behind the scenes for the efforts that led up to making such a remarkable happy ending happen. In Missoula, Augusta McDonald, MTN News.
In other news, residents of Plentywood, Montana are cleaning up today after powerful storms hit northeastern Montana. Take a look at these photos taken by Taylor Ordahl. The National Weather Service says an EF1 tornado touched down on the south end of Plentywood Monday night, but most of the damage came from a macroburst, packing winds of up to 120 miles an hour. The Weather Service reports that 10 small airplanes were heavily damaged and as many as 8 hangars were destroyed. 80 to 100 mile-per-hour wind gusts uprooted trees and damaged homes in the county fairgrounds. Another storm wreaked havoc more than 100 miles away in Watford City, North Dakota. By the time it got there Monday night, it formed into an EF2 tornado. Winds in excess of 127 miles per hour ripped through the city around 1 a.m. Dozens of people were injured after high winds slammed an RV park. Those wind gusts were strong enough to flip and even shred some trailers. At least 6 people were critically injured. Back here in Montana, hunting and fishing industry leaders from Canada to New Mexico are in Bozeman this week talking about chronic wasting disease. The 2-day conference, called the North American Assembly of Outfitter Associations, will discuss a range of issues, but of high importance is CWD. A federal veterinarian specializing in the disease addressed the group Tuesday to answer questions, present the latest research, and discuss the best ways to manage spreading. CWD is fatal and impacts deer and elk. An animal can have and transmit the disease for years without showing signs. Testing will be done in targeted areas during the upcoming hunting seasons. CWD was detected for the first time in Montana in October and November of last year. Well, before we take a break, is taking a multivitamin a waste of time? A new report published through the American Heart Association finds multivitamins do not help prevent heart attacks, strokes, or cardiovascular death. CBS's Kenneth Craig explains.
1 in 3 Americans take multivitamins and minerals, spending an estimated $21 billion on supplements every year. But a new analysis suggests when it comes to heart health, multivitamins and minerals are not worth it. Research published in an American Heart Association journal looked at 18 previous studies on multivitamins that tracked more than 2 million people for an average of 12 years. They found multivitamins do not prevent heart attacks, strokes, or cardiovascular death.
Americans taking these supplements, presumably because they're concerned about their health, would be better served by spending their money on good nutrition in the form of a healthy diet.
Researchers say the best multivitamins and minerals come from the produce aisle. Fruits and vegetables already have a proven track record of lowering the risk of heart disease and stroke. Supplements are also not FDA approved for safety or effectiveness.
People shouldn't be under the misconception that just because you can get these over the counter that they're safe. Each year, it's estimated that 23,000 individuals are seen in emergency departments across the country due to adverse effects from different supplements.
But the Council on Responsible Nutrition, a supplement trade group, says multivitamins fill nutrient gaps in our less than perfect diets and are not intended to serve as magic bullets. The group points out multivitamins help low-income Americans combat insufficient nutrient levels for less than a dime a day. Kenneth Craig, CBS News, New York.